if you're new to politics, if you're new to progressive politics or left politics, any politics in general, here's a really good rule for you to remember. Do not listen to the mainstream media. Okay? The mainstream media will always push for more war. They will always be against legislation like Medicare for all, free public college. They'll call it a pony. They'll say it's not feasible. All these things that other countries have had for decades, if not a century, they will say you don't deserve to have because X, Y, and Z. Right? Remember, the mainstream media, where do they get their money from? They get their money from the defense industry. They get their money from the pharmaceutical industry, their advertising dollars, from the healthcare insurance industry. They get their money from all the industries that are screwing you over on the daily. That's where they get their money from. Okay, so you always have to take news that they're giving you, especially when it's in regards to war, when it's in regards to healthcare, when it's in regards to, schooling, right? The cost of schooling, all this stuff. You have to take that with a huge grain of salt. In fact, in my eyes, I would say come watch a show like this, like The Takeover, because we actually deliver you real news. So here's a really, really good example of that. Recently, Joe Biden announced that he was going to be that the U.S. will be withdrawing from Afghanistan by September 11th, 2021. And the question that, well, first off, he said that in 2012. He said the U.S. will be out of Afghanistan in 2014, period, when he was the vice president under Barack Obama. Of course, that didn't happen, and we're still there going on 20 years. So, I mean, who knows if he's actually telling the truth or not? He has such a proven track record as, an incessant liar. So it's really hard to take him at his word for anything. But for all intents and purposes, let's say he's telling the truth, right? My immediate question, and I'm not a journalist. I didn't go to journalism school or anything like that. My immediate question is, why are we waiting until September? Why are we still putting, if we're going to get out, why we really need 6 months to mobilize our troops out of Afghanistan? No, that's BS. Why are we not getting out of it earlier? Why are you putting it off until September? Why? That's what my question would be. I would be saying, why are you, if we know we're going to be getting out, why are you continuing to put U.S. troops in harm's way? Why are you doing that? Especially considered Trump and the last administration negotiated with the Taliban that we would be out by May 1st. And the fact that we're not going to be out by May 1st, the Taliban already said, okay, well, now there's going to be increased violence. So, just because we say a liar who's lied about it before says we're going to be out by September, that doesn't necessarily mean that, the Taliban and the forces in Afghanistan are going to be like, okay, I guess we'll take it easy for the next few months. No, it could happen. That could happen. But, that's up in the air. So why not just pull our troops out by the actual May 1st deadline that was negotiated? The U.S. once again going back on its word. That's what my question would be. Let's see what the actual U.S. media, the people that have went to school for journalism and, because they think we live in some meritocracy, now they're sitting in the White House press room. And let's see what they had to ask Jen Psaki, the White House press secretary.
We are getting much closer to having news to share on that high-level personnel announcement. I don't expect that person will be attending tomorrow, but hopefully we'll have more to share soon. Go ahead, Kristen.
Thank you, Jen. Can you explain the rationale for why President Biden went against the advice of military commanders who recommended leaving 2,500 troops on the ground in Afghanistan?
Well, I think that's an overcharacterization of every military leader, and I don't think they've all provided their point of view on what their advice is, and we'll keep that private. So you can certainly speak to individuals if you'd like, of course. I will say, again, the president welcomed the advice, welcomed at times disagreement about what the appropriate path forward should be. But his view, based on the assessments of where our terrorist threat exists today, the fact that it is metastasized, that it has spread into many other regions of the world, that we can still, we still do have the ability to have a presence in the region where we can keep our eye on the terrorist threat, that it led him to conclude that now is the time for troops to leave. I think it's important also to note that that his view is that we can't continue the cycle of extending or expanding our military footprint, hoping to create the ideal conditions for our withdrawal. No one will tell you, unless someone has told you, and then tell me that, of course, that we should stay forever. No military commander wants to stay forever. They insist that this is not, some insist this is not the time to leave, some opponents of his decision. But his view is that we've been having that argument. That argument has been made for 10 years, and it has not changed the outcome, has not made a military solution more appealing or more effective.
So our Pentagon team reports that most military commanders in the region, and I don't want to give any names because I don't want to violate any on-background agreements, but they say that most military commanders in the region recommended that 2,500 troop level. And if you look at then candidate Biden's own comments from about a year ago, he said that he wanted to leave several thousand troops in Afghanistan. So what changed between now and then?
He asked his team for a clear assessment to make a determination about the best path forward. I will remind everyone that he has been somebody who has long viewed he opposed the surge in Afghanistan. He has long viewed the presence, the military presence in Afghanistan as something that was not a constructive long-term solution. That has been his consistent view. At the same time, because we have the ability to who work with our partners in the region to have a presence where we can to allow ourselves to keep an eye on the terrorist threat, he feels this is something that is in our interest as the country, and now is the time to do it.
So you see how hard the U.S. media is pushing Jen Psaki and President Biden and the Biden administration to stay in Afghanistan, to continue to putting American troops in harm's way. For what reason? For no reason. For no reason. They're supposed to be the ones saying, why are we there in the first place? Why aren't we getting out by the actual May 1st deadline? It's inconceivable that we have a U.S. media that time after time after time after time is for war. It's for no. What do you mean? The Pentagon, who hasn't seen a war they didn't like, our Pentagon officials are saying that the military commanders there, they don't want to leave. Well, you mean the same military commanders that said we were going to be there for 2 or 3 or 4 years and it'd be quick and we get in and out? Those same military commanders are the same military commanders that admitted in the Afghanistan papers, which y'all should have been covering as a U.S. media, that admitted that we had not a faintest clue what we were doing in Afghanistan, that they had generals and commanders there getting asked by soldiers who's the enemy, and they're like, I can't tell you that. I don't know who's the enemy and who's not the enemy. That's what you're supposed to be doing as a U.S. media. And that's why we have a country full of people who doesn't even know and can't even point on a map of all the places, all the military bases we have, all the places we're bombing, all the places we're sanctioning. People in this country can't even find it on the map. Yet under our name, that's being done. And what is the U.S. media, which is supposed to be the fourth estate, which is supposed to actually hold these politicians accountable, hold the Pentagon accountable? What are they doing? They're going to the Pentagon, being stenographers, just like Judith Miller was for the New York Times in 2001, when she was getting quotes directly from Dick Cheney and writing them in the paper as fact, pushing us further towards going into a war that killed minimal 500,000 civilians, minimal, and thousands of U.S. troops. Spent $1 trillion on a war, destabilized a complete region. Now, what are they doing now, 20 years later? The exact same thing. The exact same thing. They're pressuring Biden against removing troops. And what are their sources for why we should have troops there? The Pentagon. The people they're supposed to be holding accountable. I mean, this is just unbelievable. It's inconceivable, and it's the reason that we're in this position we are in today, where trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars have been spent on wasteful wars, while the infrastructure here crumbles, while people go hungry, while people have to decide between rent, food, healthcare. They're waiting in bread lines. They're getting charged exorbitant rates for energy. All these prices are going up. Oh, but y'all can't find the time to raise their wage? I mean, just unbelievable. This is the U.S. media we're working with. These are the people that are sitting in that press briefing room asking Jen Psaki questions on behalf of the Pentagon and not the people. So don't go there for your media. Don't consume that media. They will brainwash you into thinking that we have to be everywhere around the world extending militarily, wasting money while people here starve. That's what the U.S. media will have you thinking.